What's up, everybody? It's Tuesday. Welcome back to the Tuesday stream. We're getting tactical today because it's been a really interesting weekend for Warhammer 40k. Lots of ridiculous announcements, insane tea getting spilled, and some absolutely wild event results to talk about. So I'm psyched about it. I hope everyone else is psyched about it. Thanks everyone for coming and joining in. I hope you watched my video earlier today about the undefeated list this week. I don't usually cover the sort of boring stuff on these Tuesday shows. So, oftentimes we'll talk about, Eldar are winning everything, whatever. Those undefeated lists we'll talk about over on those Monday shows. This one was Tuesday because I did the Space Marine video yesterday. But, if I continue to do those, that's probably what the split's going to look like. So if you want to hear about the real sweaty stuff and interesting undefeated lists, I'll talk about those in the video so everybody can experience that. But if you want to dive real deep into some stats, into some maybe X and 1 lists who are super cool, then that's what we're going to be doing on these shows. Thanks, everyone, for coming and hanging out. Tactical Tuesday, baby. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. A couple of housekeeping announcements. I'm going to be live immediately after this show concludes over on Twitch. That starts about 7:30. I have a game over in Dutes's event, actually. Mr. Dutes, if you watched the T5ST Invitational stream yesterday, then you will have watched Dutes play, and he is running a tournament online, and I am participating. That is the Black Crusade Online, I think it's called, and I'll be playing my game in that after this. In addition, if you want to play some games as well and participate on your own, we have extended the registration period for the upcoming events in the TacticalTortoise server. So we have 2 events that launch on Wednesday. So if you get your registration and lists in before EOD on Wednesday, then you'll be good to go. Those are a grand tournament. I think right now has close to 30 players in it, and we'll probably get a couple more stragglers as the day goes on. But that's going to be just a sort of standard Leviathan format GT, 5 rounds. It will cut to 6 if we get enough players to run 6. And we have multiple undefeated at the end, and there's prizes, and there's door prizes and stuff like that. In addition, we also have a combat patrol event that's going to be a little bit more focused on new players. So you can, if you just want to play some combat patrol, play some laid-back games that are super quick, go check those out. Exclamation point events, you can join either of those. They are on Tabletop Simulator. So, yeah. How's it going, everybody? Let's talk about some lists. Now that we're all settled in and good to go. I hope everyone's enjoying the invitational coverage. By the way, been streaming a lot of that. It's been super fun. The games have been super good so far. A couple upsets. Space Wolves, 2 Space Wolves undefeated going into round 2. Crazy, absolutely crazy. And we'll talk about some other weird factions that are winning. Don't know how many situations in the game feel out of the player's hands, especially with how secondaries work. They can win or lose you game by chance. That's true. I do think it's very much like any card-based game. The secondaries are up to the luck of the cards, but good players will give themselves more opportunities to get good draws. So if you have a list that's constructed for the format and you set yourself up the turn before, then you can, make it so that a majority of the cards that you could possibly draw in a turn are scoreable that turn. And I think that's an as yet not quite unlocked part of the tactics of the game that some players are good at so far, but I think the vast majority of people are just sort of playing things as they roll. I'm definitely I think one of those to some extent. Sometimes I pick up a secondary and I'm like, well, I could have set up for this one, but I had forgotten the turn before. And I think it's just going to have to take some getting used to for sure. Is this going to be the stream where I tell us armies like Tau are actually good and balanced? Well, let me tell you, Tau are pretty good when you make up what all your stats do, apparently. According to the Lone Star Open. To boot gladiators, they'll be painted up for the points increase of September. I hope they dodge the points increase. Gladiators seem okay for sure. Love to see anything Drukhari related. If you watched my video from earlier today, you'll see some Drukhari make an appearance. Not in a Drukhari faction, but there are Drukhari models there, so that's something. Was William Abeles the one caught cheating? Yeah, so we can give a little bit of a sneak preview, I guess. This list right here is highly suspect. According to, I'll make a video about this whole thing, and I dive deeper into it. But basically, after the fact, he was given like sort of verbal warnings, I guess, at the event, but never anything better by the judges in the 2 or 3 times he was reported. But apparently, this player has like a really bad reputation of cheating. He's been banned from a couple of smaller tournament circuits, but the ITC never banned him. So he's played, this was at Lone Star Open, so it was a frontline gaming event. And they didn't take any action on it. And apparently, he played, well, not apparently, he did. He played through Unity Devastation on a Fireside team, which I think was what immediately dropped people's eyes after the fact. They said, oh, cool, a Tau player went 6-0. What was in their list? This enhancement doesn't do anything. So it's supposed to give the unit that you are leading lethal hits. And a lot of Fireside teams don't lead units. So it's weird that you could apply the attachment to them, but it doesn't do anything, or the enhancement to them. Apparently, he was also just sort of like making up rules on the fly. His broadside battlesuit teams had like every single weapon option at the same time. He was like overrolling his smart missile system shots. His some of his profiles like maybe had extra AP in them more than they should, allegedly. He played things like apparently a Riptide battlesuit with a scout move, which doesn't make any sense. So it was a lot of stuff. It was just sort of kept happening. This is a lot of hearsay. It's a lot of like posting on social media about it, but the players who played against him have sort of levied these accusations. So I didn't talk about the undefeated tile list in my video earlier today because this one probably got to its undefeated spot by underhanded means. But I'll do a whole video where I'll actually summarize all of the exact, things that happened. Absolutely crazy. Pretty wild. Anthony had a wild weekend at Palm Springs Open? Hell yeah. Well, Palm Springs Open looked fun. I was watching Tyler Russo, $1 Billion Clown Farm, talk about it over the weekend, and it looked like a super duper fun event. Just remember to bring the toilet dice. All right. So let's dive in to some of these lists. So I want to talk about some of these X and 1s over here, at least in these bigger events. So Lone Star Open was 214 players, I think. So relatively large, but we can see that it was sort of dominated by the top stuff. We had Imperial Knights, Genestealer Cults, Tau Empire, and obviously not really, though. And Eldar right at the top. However, we do have Robert Moreland over here with a cheeky Astra Militarum getting up in here. And it seems like Astra Militarum actually may be sort of one of the sleepers that are slowly pushing their way up. And I think a lot of it is that, they have solid defensive profiles. They have good indirect fire, although I don't believe this list focused on indirect fire. It had some mortars and stuff. And so a lot of armies right now are bringing these, if you're looking at Genestealer Cults, right, you're bringing tons and tons of these like light infantry. If you're playing Eldar, you're really like, you're so focused on your like 10 or 15 Warp Spiders and your 10 Shadow Specters. If those all get blown out from under you by indirect fire, or your Farseer gets killed and then Phoenix Gems it gets killed again by like Manticores, things can go really poorly for you. So that's I think there's a little bit of sleeper power in here. Looks like we're running Hellhounds today as well. Not to mention the fact that they do have cheap Deep Strikers themselves. They can run Tempestus Scions in order to give themselves a little bit of Deep Strike in order to score their own tactical secondaries. So let's talk about this list. This list is absolutely wild. It's running Gaunt's Ghosts, which I believe are Infiltrate Scouts, if I remember correctly. So they're mostly good for a pre-game move. I'll just pull up the index right here, and we can look at all their data sheets. Should have done this ahead of time, but I didn't, so we're doing it live. We get to click a bunch of buttons on Warhammer Community, so it actually shows me the data sheets. I'm going to apologize ahead of time as well, chat. I'm still getting over a cold, so I am going to take some coughing breaks momentarily. got a little something in my throat here. So let's take a look at Gaunt. Oh, sorry. They are just Infiltrate. They don't have Scout. They are infiltrating stealth lone operatives, though. So for the low cost of 115 points, you get 6 models that infiltrate and can't be shot at. They also gain cover all the time, so they're -1 to hit, also always in cover. That doesn't help too much. Their saves are okay, I guess, 5 and 4, but that's not amazing. And then they can go back into reinforcements. They have some pretty solid profiles. The long last is a 4 damage precision, so it threatens a ton of characters. Your opponent has to sort of constantly be worried about that. It's also 2+ ballistic skill heavy, so you can shoot through stealth as well with it if you remain stationary, which is kind of cute. So I don't know, pretty sweet profile. Lord Solar Leontis is in here because we are running a super heavy, so we need him to order it. Platoon command squad, a regimental engines here. So again, I think we're going to be pumping up the super heavy with the invulnerable save and Ursula Creed as well. A couple of units of Cadian shock troops and Death Corps. 2 chimeras to keep them in. There we go. The big boy himself, the Bane Sword. Grab this dude. Here he is. Make sure that data sheet shows up on the stream there, chat. So this is the Deadly Demise 3+ guy. So every time he shoots you with the Quake Cannon, it's not heavy, so he can't get down to hitting on 2s with him, which is unfortunate, but it is still going to get down to 3s to hit if you take aim, and it's shooting enough times that it's probably fine. It's AP4 ignore cover, so most things can't take non-invulnerable saves against it. It punches all the way through 3+ save and cover. Once you're at a 2+ save, you could save on a 6, but it is firing between 7 and 12 times with blast. And then if it kills you, then you deadly demise on a 3. The meme I know with this is if you shoot the Silent King, all of the Silent King's component models deadly demise for D6. So you could potentially be like forcing 3d6 cast or immortal wounds on all your opponent's army, which is pretty nuts. So the other thing is that obviously it's going to be taking its las cannons and heavy bolters on the sponsons, I imagine. Yeah, we're taking las cannons and heavy bolters elsewhere here, and so it's going to be able to soften you up with the las cannon shots. 4 las cannons is unlikely to one-shot a vehicle, but then you can kill somebody with the crit cannon, so you can sort of confirm the kill, and that confirms that you get that deadly demise, so you also get splash damage to the rest of your opponent's army. The other thing I know that people were discussing with this guy is literally just using it as like an Overwatch battery, where it sits in the middle of the table. It fires so many shots because it has so many twin heavy bolters and las cannons, and the Quake cannon fires a bunch of shots as well, and it's basically always dangerous in the middle of the table. And not being like a Titan, it actually doesn't get the cost increase for all of its stratagems, so it's able to fire normally as well. The other thing that we have to talk about too for the Lone Star Open is that it used player place terrain, so that's another big benefit to the Imperial Guard Super Heavies, because they're Titanic but not towering, so they're big, but they can block and be blocked by ruined terrain, which means that you can give yourself a safe place for the Banesword to start that has a good place for it to move to actually be able to shift out and sort of project threat across the center of the table. And then with a big good invulnerable save on itself from the regimental engines here, it's tough to get killed by non-devastating anti-tank weapons on the crackback. So pretty cute. I like that. We also have these 2 Hellhounds, which I think had the, let's see. So they have their Torrent weapon. So it's a 18-inch range 2d6 flamer. The big benefit of the Hellhounds, which we do, is pretty beneficial to the non-Quake cannon shots, is that every time they hit something with a ranged attack, they remove cover from it. So you can do that on like its hunter-killer missiles, for example. You can shoot 2 hunter-killer missiles, one from each hellhound, and if one of them connects, you actually get rid of cover on whatever you're shooting at. So these like rapier laser destroyers can suddenly convert on them. The rapier, I don't know if is a profile that I've seen before, so that's definitely worth taking a look at. It's probably just an efficient way to get las cannon profiles into the list, but the Astra militarum Imperial armors are awkwardly not near each other in the document here. So it's ballistic skill 5 heavy, so it's able to shoot, if it remains stationary, it's able to shoot on 4s down to 3s if you take aim, otherwise you're stuck at 4s, but it's twin-linked as well, so it's firing strength 12 twin-linked. Getting ignore cover is a big deal on that because it is only AP 2, but for 90 points, and you get 3 of them, I guess? Oh, wow, you do. Okay. So you're firing 6 shots with that profile. And again, I think with player place terrain, you can maybe set up good positions where you can start these guys outside line of sight, but you have good lines of sight through the center if your opponent moves themselves. So then you can try to set up a point where you remain stationary. They're easy to kill. They're easy as hell to kill. Only 3 wounds, T4, 4+ save. I don't know if you would strategic reserve them. That does seem like a pretty good plan, but only hitting on 5s with them does feel a little bit scary. I think you'd want to be ordering them the turn that they go to shoot. But it seems like kind of a fire and forget missile, but that's a very efficient damage profile for what it is. Tea with some strong alcohol. Yeah, I don't know if I have any tea left over. The last time I got sick, I stocked up, but then I think I just went through it all. But yeah, I think I picked this up on like Saturday. This is unfortunate, kind of inopportune timing for all the streaming this weekend. But very cool list from Robert Moreland here. Really shifting away from the indirect fire stuff now that that's been nerfed a little bit, and I think kind of taking advantage, of the increased cost of other towering units, because there's actually not many towering models that kill a Bane Sword in one go, and because they've all been increased in cost and the Bane Sword hasn't, it actually probably wins that fight from a cost like benefit analysis. Plus, if you're taking all your shots into the Bane Sword, you're not really shooting at these rapier laser destroyers, so those things can just keep picking at you for the entire game. Pretty sweet. I like it. Now, other than that, we did some Chaos Space Marines, and to my knowledge, the Lone Star Open was actually kind of dominated by Chaos Space Marines. I think if we bring it up in Best Coast pairings, let me actually grab the event listing. There were a lot of Chaos Space Marines that did very well at this event, which I feel a little bit vindicated for, because I gave Chaos Space Marines an incredibly glowing review when the indexes first dropped, and I don't know if that was going to be entirely correct, but they seem to be doing pretty well. Yeah, so we had a Chaos Space Marines at 7th, and a Chaos Space Marine at 11, a World Eaters at 12, okay, and then a Chaos Space Marines at 13. So yeah, the top like 18 or so of this huge event, 214 players, right, had 3 Chaos Space Marines in it, almost more than other factions. Let's look at these World Eaters list, by the way. X and 1 with World Eaters. That's exciting. Oh, we got a red background for it, too. Thematically appropriate. We're running a World Eaters Demon Prince, which I've definitely looked at before, but I can't remember the effect of the World Eaters Demon Prince, because they all have different abilities. So the World Eater's Demon Prince gets devastating wounds. The other benefit that the World Eater's one has over the classic Demon Princes is that it has the Mark of Khorne built in. So this is what you can do on the... it also grants infantry 4+ invulnerable save. Wow, okay. All right, calm down. So the Chaos Demons Demon Princes, you have to declare a mark for them, and Khorne is the only way to get above Strength 8 on the melee attack. It gives you +2 strength in your melee weapons. The World Eater's Demon Prince has that baked in. Also, you get devastating wounds of the charge, and you give a 4+ vulnerable save and an aura. So that is a hell of a unit right there. Okay, that guy's pretty sweet. He's also running Favorite of Khorne, which gives him a full reroll on the Blessings of Khorne roll. So you could just re-rack and then manipulate the dice afterwards to try to fish for the benefits that you want. And he's a pretty tanky profile to attach that to, especially since he's not super threatening on the early game, until you get the Khorne speed buffs active. So once the Blessings of Khorne come into play, he's normally just a kind of a move 8 like idiot, but once he's +2 movement, advance and charge, he suddenly threatens across the table. Seems pretty good. We also have a Master of Executions. These are units of 10 Berserkers. And then unit of 5, unit of 5, unit of 5, unit of 5, 2 Rhinos. Oh, excuse me, chat. I'm sorry, everybody. Oh, I apologize. We back, though. What a wild list. So literally nothing. So it's Angron, Invocatus, the Demon Prince, the Master of Executions. Everything else is a Khorne Berserker or a transport for a Khorne Berserker. Sweet and simple. No Mauler Fiends today. I know people really heavily on Mauler Fiends. People are super up on some of the heavier stuff, like Khorne's Lords of Skulls in World Eaters. We're not doing that today. We're just literally taking nothing but infantry, and that's doing well. Giving all the infantry a 4+ vulnerable save, that's pretty good. It means that the Demon Prince probably eats a ton of heat off of the other stuff. And, are you going to shoot the Demon Prince or are you going to shoot Angron? You probably kill Angron first, which means the Demon Prince gets an extra turn of providing the invulnerable save to all the infantry. You push all the infantry up the table. If you don't kill them, they get a reactive move, so they can even get closer. And you're just forcing 40 Berserkers down their throat. I love it. This list is cool. Hell yeah. Yeah, good taste at this tournament for sure. So lots of good Chaos Space Marine lists as well. We can talk about Russell Tassin here, who is a dyed-in-the-wool Black Templars player. I think I did a video on him a while ago where he took down a couple GTs, or it was a period where a couple GTs got taken down by a Khorne Lord of Skulls and Black Templar, or a Black Templars in a Black Legion list. Also, World Eaters list with 3 Land Raiders. I mean, that also seems good. It feels like World Eaters, like the more efficiently you can deliver Khorne Berserkers, the better you do with World Eaters. It's like a direct comparison. Like more Khorne Berserker melee attacks made equals better result. So we're running Abaddon and a Chaos Lord in Terminator armor. Nothing too special going on there. A big, or just a regular sized cultist mob. A Chaos Land Raider, okay, with a Terminator squad. So are we putting the Terminator squad with Abaddon into the Land Raider? That seems pretty solid. Benefit there is that you can basically always ensure that Abaddon triggers his gunshot on the first turn so that you can generate CP, because you can always just move the Land Raider and then disembark and then shoot somebody with this bolter to get your command point. Forge Fiend. I think I've talked about the Forge Fiend before in this faction, but it's absolutely nuts. If you give it Mark of Chaos Undivided, you can, for 1 CP, reroll all of its hit and wound rolls. We're taking Ectoplasmic Cannons on everything, which is so interesting to me, because I think if you're spending the CP, then the Hades autocannons actually have a higher damage output, or it's very close at least. However, the ectoplasmic cannons do give you a buff against high model count, so it might be we're trying to answer hordes because each of them are blasts, so you get more shots, and then the Forge Fiend can trade, once it performs a Dark Pact, hazardous on all its weapons for devastating wounds. So you're firing 3d3 if you're shooting a brick of 20 like Necron Warriors or Neophytes. You're shooting 3d3 plus 12. You use the Mark of Chaos Undivided to reroll everything. You give it Sustain 1. So you're shooting, hitting on 3s, rerolling everything, exploding on 6s. Then your 6s become devastating, rerolling again. So you just fish for 6s, and each of one of those 6s turns into 3 wounds. So, because of devastating wounds, 3 mortal wounds. So if you're shooting at 1 wound infantry, the ectoplasmic cannons are way better. But the autocannons give you more shots against heavier targets to try to get 2 damage devastating wounds in. But I think either way is fine. They're just slightly different into different targets, but an absolute monster of a unit. There's a reason that the Forge Fiend in Chaos Space Marines cost like dramatically more than all the other Forge Fiends, I think. We also have 3 units of Obliterators with Mark of Nurgle, so they get sustain on 5s. And then you potentially can't shoot them back because they are they get lone operative if with the Nurgle stratagem. And then once per game they can all indirect fire you, so they can just blast you through walls with that exploding 5s, and then 2 units of Nurglings just to do some actions. Seems pretty straightforward. A lot of really powerful guns sitting in the back, backing up a Land Raider filled with Chaos Terminators with Abaddon in it. Easy. Seems good. I like it. All right, good stuff. So Palm Springs Open was a little bit smaller. This is 111 players, but we had, I think, a much more diverse metagame. And this is one of the things that's really kind of sending me about the 10th edition meta so far. Right now, Eldar is unspeakably broken. I mean, if we look at these top results, right? Eldar. One more Eldar undefeated here. The Kraken GT, I believe, had Eldar in the top 4 finishing places. 1, 2, 3, 4, all Eldar. Absolutely nuts. Like, this faction is cranked so hard. I hope, because it's such a problem right now, my hope is that we see a little bit of a tweak in the errata this week. It's supposed to be, I think, more of a bug fix, but you could roll... If you're errating data sheets or something, you could roll something very slim in there, you know. You can only Phantasm once per game, or it costs 2 CP, or Wraithguard are, you know, have a different data sheet ability or something. And I think if that happens, you know, if Eldar... If we rid the top spot of Eldar here, I actually think the rest of this looks pretty good. Genestealer cults are the next in danger, but we are not seeing the same level of like overrepresentation in this undefeated section that Genestealer cults are. And it seems like more and more that Genestealer cults are very difficult to play. So a lot of players are struggling with them in the current, are struggling to go undefeated. They certainly have an above average win rate. Definitely. Probably one of the best win rates of the game. But very good players are able to construct answers to Genestealer cults. And Genestealer cults have to kind of contort themselves a little bit in order to defeat them. So you have to start taking Acolyte Icon Wards. You have to start taking Clam Abysses. And even so, if you just get swept by Infiltrate Clear every turn, it's not that, you know, it's not the end of the world. I do think that, like, the Nexos is probably a problem in that faction, just because the efficiency they get out of their stratagems is kind of insane. It doesn't seem... currently like it's as much of a problem as Eldari. So and I think the Palm Springs Open here is a really interesting peek at that, right? Because we have 3 Eldar spots, right? 2 are in the X1. Tyranids went undefeated, Necrons went X1, Chaos Demons went X1, and another Chaos Space Marines. So these factions that are like real sort of middle of the road are starting to edge up into that top spot. And man, if we see these top 1, top 2 factions get knocked down a peg, this metagame's going to look so sick. So sick. The one ruin is infinite height roll actually buffs the Rage Knight since it can Phantasm to cover. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you watched the game last night that we streamed here, that was basically like sort of the name of the game. There were a couple ruins that were, are meant to block line of sight to and from towering units, and Wraith Knights just abuse that really hard. That said, there are very few armies that can kill Wraith Knights even with towering, like even being able to see them on the first turn, because the Wraith Knight can stand so far back, it can then, phantasm into a position where only a couple guns can shoot it. It's already hard to kill, and then it puts fortune on itself, and it's very difficult. So it's sort of a catch-22, it's a little tough. GSC very expensive and time-consuming to buy into. Yeah, and I think honestly, I think it's also hard to play. I think that it's really easy to mess up Genestealer Cult. Whether you run up into time issues, whether you are misdeploying, whether you play your Cult Ambush tokens wrong. It looks like it's a very simple faction. Like, what? You just respawn all your models every turn? That's crazy. What an easy faction to play. But if you're not up on all of the tricks and you're not fast at executing with it, I think you run into some huge problems. So it's definitely, and I think that's always been how Genestealer Cults have been. Genestealer Cults, even in the worst position that they were in 9th edition, were still like, they had a bad win rate, but because a lot of people couldn't find success because they weren't playing that super duper fine-tuned game plan that they're supposed to play. So, if it might just be this like top 1% faction for the most enfranchised people. And that does mean that in some situations it's going to be too strong and it probably needs a tone down, but it does mean that we're going to see less of them at that top area, and that's probably okay. Kind of think Phantasm should be made to react when a unit is targeted. I think it should. I mean, I could say my opinions all day. I think it should be like squad tactics, where you move in response to a enemy moving near you. That's the fact that it's, yeah, I don't know. Being made upon targeting, actually, I think in some situations makes it more powerful. It's less like utilitarian, but there are a lot of factions that like Thousand Suns, right? They chase you with your reactive moves, and then they target you if you move away, or they're just fucked. And I think there's a lot of instances like that where the Eldar player gets like even more of a control over when Phantasm triggers than normal. I don't know. A little bit weird. PSI was pretty dang fun. Hell yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it looks really fun. Running an event in a Margaritaville is like real party town. That sounds pretty good. Any successful Chaos Knights lists? We can do a little bit of a peek for them, but not many right now. Chaos Knights are definitely struggling. I'm not going to say they're bad. I think they're right in the middle, but they're certainly not doing very well. All right, let's dive in. I'm excited to see these Chaos Demons. We'll take a peek at Necrons first. So we are running a Catan Shard of the Nightbringer. All right, this list is off to a pretty spicy start. So we have the Sempiternal Transcendent Catan. That's fair enough. Seems pretty good. A Shard of the Nightbringer I haven't seen. So the Catan Shards all innately have the incoming damage that they take. The Transcendent Catan can then, because it's a non-character or non-epic hero, can take enhancements. Excuse me. Oh my god. Gotta clear out my throat, chap. Ooh. So it can get a 4+ feel no pain in addition to having damage and having a 4+ invulnerable save. So it's super hard to kill, and when it advances, it can teleport around the table. So it bounces around, it does your secondaries, your opponent shoots at it, they do no damage at all because it's basically invincible. The downside is that it doesn't heal. The Technomancers can repair them, but the other Catan Shards do in fact heal. So we have the Nightbringer here. Here's our very bestest friend. He pulses mortal wounds at the end of each fight phase. He has damage just like all the Catan Shards. At T11, 12 wounds with a 4+ invulnerable save. He shoots D3 blast, D6 +3 strength 12. So he's a las cannon basically with an 18. Lower AP but higher damage. And then swings for strength 14, AP 4, D6 damage, devastating wounds. So he's a pretty incredibly strong sort of close range fighter. I think, yeah, largely just going to punish people who can deal with the Lich Guard brick, it looks like. So we're running a Hyper Material, a Blader Overlord. So he's going to give cover and potentially, or stealth and potential cover. Those have flipped from last edition. A lot of times things gave you cover and then stealth if you are far away from things. And now it's always flipped. Or they give stealth now, and then if you're far away from the opponent, they give cover. Pretty annoying, but it is what it is. Technomancer with the Veil of Darkness, a Transcendent Catan. We are not running Auric and the Diviner. So the Lich Guard here that all the characters are going to sink into have Dispersion Shields, so they have a 4+ invulnerable save. And then we can teleport them once per game with the Technomancer and put the Overlord inside. And then we have, I imagine, a bunch of Crypto Thralls. Yep, there they are. So we can put 2 Crypto Thralls inside the unit, and they can mix stuff up. 2 Doomsday Arcs for shooting, 2 units of Flayed Ones for some nice secondary objective play, and some Scarab Swarms for the same thing. Pretty interesting. Basically, I guess there's also 10 Immortals here, which is just a good backline unit. They can sort of range out, and they're hard to one-shot, and then they'll just reanimate back if you don't kill them. So basically just taking either the second brick or like a Locust Destroyer brick and replacing it with the Nightbringer to just like really hammer home that like middle center board control, where you just have this huge brick of Lich Guard plus this Catan Shard that's just gonna like chill in the center, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if the Catan Shard of the Nightbringer hangs out with the Lich Guard, it can reanimate additional from the Reanimator, and then get repaired by the Technomancer, I think. So if you can't kill like a T12 half damage 4-up save guy, he's just invincible. He just repairs back to full every turn. God, Necrons are so good, dude. Absolutely. Absolutely amazing.
Could you look at my Tyranids list, Pappy?
Bryce Sullivan with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Yeah, I can take a look at your Tyranids list. Have you... can you PM it to me? Or if you're in my Discord, you could send it to me. Or if you have a paste bin or something, then you could shoot it to me there. I will absolutely look at your Tyranids list. Oh yeah, the Plasmamancer also goes into the Immortals, yeah. So he improves their critical? That is good. Plus the Tesla carbines, if I remember correctly, are assault weapons. So you can advance and perform actions or advance and shoot with them. So it actually gives them kind of a respectable threat range. Which is real good. For some reason I can't find their data sheet, but I think you'll maybe just take my word for it. Still getting used to my new method of organizing data sheets into individual files here, which is a little bit tough, but that's okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, I know what happened. All right. Yeah, so assault on the Tesla. They reroll wounds of 1. And they full reroll against enemies on objective markers, yeah. They're just Rubric Marines, these friends. So they're shooting 2 attacks each, huge sustains, at strength 5, full rerolls. They're AP 0, but that means they ignore cover, basically, so it's not the end of the world to be AP 0. And they'll just force a ton of wounds on you. So good at clearing infantry or poking at vehicles. Oh, sweet. Hit me up on Discord. Hell yeah. Thank you so much. Give me 1 sec. Just putting this bad boy in a little paste bin. Here we go. let's look. Let's look at some Tyranids. So Parasited Mortrax with Synaptic Linchpin to project out our synapse. Hive Tyrant, 3 units of Gargoyles, 2 units of Barbgaunts, 2 Biovores. I'm sort of sold on the double Biovore. I think that I was a little bit worried people would kill your Biovores if you ran 3. But I think generally speaking, you have enough like sort of squishy backline stuff that if your opponent is wasting time shooting at the Biovore, who's super far away and only like contributes to secondary objectives, and especially with 3 units of Gargoyles, you don't even really need him. Then you're probably fine with that. 2 Exocrines, 1 Haruspex, 2 Maliceptors, 1 Tyrannofex, 3 Zoanthropes, 3 Zoanthropes, 3 Zoanthropes. So I actually think if you need points somewhere, you could probably cut the Adaptive Biology. That might free you up to unlock another sort of like frontline unit, just because I found that the Hive Tyrants don't often need it. They're usually either alive or dead. They're very rarely like taking a little bit of damage, unless they have Tyrant Guard. But I think the Tyrant Guard are a point sink. I don't think the Tyrant Guard are very good. Yeah, otherwise I think this list looks extremely solid. I love the Gargoyles. I haven't had a ton of success with 2 Barbgaunt units, but I definitely think that's probably like a meta consideration. You could potentially replace Barbgaunts with like more Gargoyles if you freed some points up, or turn Gargoyles and Barbgaunts into like a combat unit. But I think that's largely because I don't often play against a ton of infantry, and Barbgaunts are only very useful against infantry. But worst case scenario, they're just like termagants, so it's not the end of the world. I think that Barbgaunts are just perfectly useful. And they're also, I mean, a bunch of blast attacks is always good against like Genestealer cults and stuff like that, so it's never bad. 2 Exocrines I love. 1 Haruspex for a little bit of late game punch. I love that. The Maliceptors I've been converted onto. I'm a proponent of the Church of the Maliceptor. I haven't gotten the best use out of the Tyrannofex, but I think that is, again, like largely because I don't often see things that the Acid Spray is super effective against. But if it seems like you play against a lot of stuff that you want the anti-infantry to deal with, so I think that's probably fine. It's also 200 points. It's like a lot. But if you find use out of it, then more power to you. And then the Zoanthropes are good. I'm always a proponent of more Zoanthropes rather than less, but 3 units of 3 is probably pretty strong. So I like it. Yeah, I like this list. I think you could, if you found you needed some additional. I think there's some. You have a little bit of wiggle room if you need to switch things in and out. I think the like the Adaptive Biology, like maybe the second Barbagate unit is like maybe some fat you could trim, but I think generally speaking, pretty good. I love it. Parasite so Knights can't kill the Warlord. Yeah, I guess do you not have like strong line of sight blocking? Generally speaking, I always find that usually there's like a wall mid deployment zone, and that's where the Hive Tyrant lives. And it doesn't project its aura super far, but it's far enough that it gets like the stuff kind of around the middle of your deployment zone, and that's usually fine. But if you don't play with good true line of sight blocking terrain, makes total sense. I totally understand. Absolutely. So Alien Cunning is weird, chat. There are conflicting rulings on exactly how it works, because it is most of the redeploys in the game, besides the Space Marine run, I think, and maybe the Genestealer cult one, do not define when they happen. They give you multiple periods in which they could happen. And I believe that the Tyranid one's like that, is like that. So Alien Cunning could potentially either happen after both players have deployed but before the first turn begins, or after the roll to go first before the first start of the first battle round. So that differentiation is super important, because if you redeploy when you don't know who's going first, it's basically not useful at all. Because you could be like, well, I'll redeploy aggressively, and then your opponent's like, all right. I can kill you, I guess. And as the most expensive enhancement, if your local playgroup doesn't play it where you can redeploy after the roll to go first, you just never take it. You just never, it's like 30 points or whatever. It's wasted time. The one time it's useful is if you're screening out enemy infiltrators with like lictors and then peeling the lictors back. But that's about it. Someone should do something about them. I mean, knights have been, I think, appropriately toned down. They are annoying to play against in a lot of situations, but I think that they're probably fine. WTC, UKTC rolled Alien Cunning is before the first turn is decided. Did they really? I thought WTC came down that it was after. I don't know though. I don't know that much about WTC, to be fair. But I know US Open did rule that it's before the roll to go first. And so a lot of tournaments in the States are ruling it that way. I mean, hopefully it's part of that cleanup phase the cleanup errata that we're getting today, that they actually put redeployment effects into the rules commentary document, or they errata that ability entirely, because right now it's just like literally it could do anything. It could do anything. We don't know. We have no idea what it's supposed to do. It's very stupid. That's why I imagine there's no Alien Cunning. If it's redeploy after roll to go first, I think it's pretty solid upgrade, but otherwise it's not great. More zone throws 18 minimum. Yeah, it's tough to. You have to make a judgment call whether you take more frontline stuff, like more utility stuff, or more zoanthropes. And I think it comes down to like play style, honestly. I am a big proponent of 18 zoanthropes, but a lot of people get more use out of the more utility. So having like 5 additional units here, or the Tyranid effects that can hold down the middle of the table, they find it more useful. So, not to mention the fact that especially if you're worried about knights getting true line of sight to you, units of 6 zoanthropes immediately vaporize if knights can see them. So you're basically just wasting additional points there. Whereas 3 zoanthropes is actually annoyingly hard to kill because they just like randomly survive attacks. 6 zoanthropes, you trigger blast, your opponent hyper focuses on them, they start to do a bunch of damage, and losing even a couple of them feels really bad. But the 3 zoanthropes, they're almost not worth the effort to shoot at in a lot of situations because they're so cheap. Yeah, 18, you could also get tagged in combat. That can definitely happen too, for sure. That sucks for them. And that's, I think, I mean, that's part of the reason that like these gargoyles are so important when you're playing zoanthropes, because they can just like ring around the rosy. Basically, you can bubble wrap your zoanthropes really well. But it depends on the matchup you're playing in. Prices. Oh, it's all Windows where you're at? I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, the lone operatives do feel good. I would consider maybe just a splash of lictors if that's the case too. Because if you have trouble hiding out of line of sight, just having more things that can hold down objectives, especially like middle of the table, or deploy aggressively without getting killed on the first turn, I think would probably be pretty worthwhile. So I could see like dropping some of the upgrades, maybe some of the barb guns for 1 lictor, and even maybe dropping a gargoyle unit for a 2nd lictor. One thing I actually don't really like is Death Leaper, and that feels really weird. But if you don't have Death Leaper in your Tyranid army, Assassination is basically a dead draw against you, because if the parasite's hiding and sitting on your backline objective or something, and the Hive Tyrant's like cowering in the corner, then like the Hive Tyrant's the only thing they could kill. And even then, if it's hard to get to, it doesn't die trivially. So if they can't get all their guns on target, it's probably not going to die to like one thing shooting at it. And it can, it's a 1+ save and cover. It's a T10, 2+, it's a, reasonably strength tanky. So if they can't kill it that turn, then it's really bad for them. But I have seen games, and I have had games against me where my opponent's like, I drew Assassination, and Death Leaper's right in the middle of the table, like doing actions or something, and I'm always like, well, sorry, Death Leaper. You're about to give my opponent 5 points. Pretty funny. problem you find with knights is that they feel uninteractive to play against. I can definitely see that. I mean, I think that's been my experience with towering too. They're statted so hard that you can't really kill them, and they can see anything and they can shoot anything that you have. So they just sit on the back line of the table. You kill all their armigers, and they have like 2 big knights that sit on their table edge and shoot you all game, and eventually they bring you down to like 2 characters that are out of their bodyguard units, but you win on secondaries. You win the game, but it does suck. And that's been almost every towering matchup I played in the last like 3 weeks. And I mean, it is what it is. I think that like it is annoying, but at least it's a game. And it's not like, how it was initially where knights were just also not only could see you, but also outperformed you on points as well. So, there's like at least a mitigating factor now, which is good. Tyranid side of the Leviathan box has pretty meh rules. Yeah, I think outside the Neuro Tyrant and Neuro Gaunts, and Barb Gaunts, I guess, none of those things really seeing too much play. Psychophages want to see play, but they're too expensive and don't do any damage. If they had a good ranged attack, or they were so strong in melee, I think we would see them a lot more. All right, moving on. We've got some other good ones over here from Palm Springs. Chaos Demons. So I'm on a Chaos Demons kick right now for the last couple of days, and I'm interested to see Chaos Demons. Chaos Demons they're very inconsistent. They have such a good selection of tools, but their offensive stats are really good, but they have very few rerolls outside of Shalaxi Hellbane, who costs as much as a knight, which is awkward. And because they don't themselves benefit from cover almost at all, they can be incredibly easy to kill. They randomly take damage from everything. You shoot every bolt gun you have every turn at a demon army, because it will just randomly plink characters like greater demons for mortal wounds or for wounds. They very quickly attrition down, and their detachment ability or their Shadow of Chaos, ability to regenerate wounds back when they succeed battle shock checks does mitigate that a little bit, but it's not super. It's not super reliable. I kind of wish that Be'lakor has an aura that forces battle shock checks on wounded enemies, and I wish that he could also do it on friendlies, so you could force battle shock checks to reconstitute them. I think that would be cool, but he doesn't do that, so it is what it is. So we're running a Great Unclean One. I'll just pull open my demons here. With the demon, with the Nurgle Relic, Actually seeing a lot of Great Unclean Ones right now. I think Nurgle was, I don't know, maybe ended up being a sleeper, and they are actually just tough enough to kill that it's probably fine. Let's look at what his thing does. Yeah, so he gains a 5+ Feel No Pain, a 4+ Feel No Pain within Shadow of Chaos, so he is a ridiculously tanky profile. He comes in at T12, 20 wounds, so he's basically the equivalent of 30-ish wounds, 35 wounds, with a 4+ Feel No Pain.
Love your content, dude. Do you think towering will eventually get removed/tweaked, or will towering units just be really expensive for the rest of 10?
Lewis, thank you so much for the super chat. I am going to maybe come out with a hot take here and say I don't think towering will get removed. I'm ready. I would love to eat my words on that. I think that would be amazing, but Games Workshop, time and time again, constantly loves to introduce these super dumb mechanics. Just so dumb. And then they very rarely go back on their word and repair them, right? I think that there's probably a requirement that they stick with their rules, at least to some extent, and they change things very sparingly. And I think that like rewriting the ruin visibility rules is probably not in the cards. So I have a sneaking suspicion that towering is not going to get changed. And I do think that unfortunately towering units might just be artificially upcharged for the keyword. I'd be happy to see that change. If we see a change, like maybe in the next 3 months or so, that would be the time to do it. But I think moving farther onwards in the future, if we don't see a change very, very quickly, then I don't think we're going to see one this edition, which just sucks because it's not a good mechanic. It's not a good mechanic, and the solution of just making every towering unit, really expensive was also not a good fix for it. So it is what it is. All right. Anyway, moving on. So the Great Unclean One's super duper duper tough. That's pretty sweet. You stick him next to Bellicor, and he can just sort of chill and hit set on objectives for a while. Lord of Change with the Everstave to be a super good gun platform. So he's got if he's next to Bellicor or if he's within Shadow in the Warp otherwise, he has, or Shadow of Chaos, I should say. Shadow in the Warp is a different thing. He has a Strength 12 Bolt of Change and a Strength 11 Staff of Sorcery. So he shoots 15 times in Strength 11 to 12 D3 damage. It's not like game-breaking damage, but it's definitely worth 255 for that guy. I actually don't know if I like other Lords of Change, but I do like the one with the Everstave. I think that guy's sweet. The more Lords of Change you have, the more they get in each other's way when trying to maneuver for shots, because they only shoot 24 inches and they're huge models. So they actually have sort of a diminishing return. Shalaxi Hellbane then also there because she is the only thing in the faction that actually rerolls. And then 3 units of Nurglings. Whoa! So the Great Unclean One also has a 6-inch aura of a 6+ Feel No Pain, I believe. Yeah. So he can actually make the Nurglings kind of difficult to kill, and the Nurglings are really annoying if they just are inside your demon formation, because oftentimes what happens is that the big demons, just by virtue of how the positioning of the game works, like Bellicor wants to keep them as far back as possible, but because they have to go to objectives, they start sort of slithering forward, and that means they start to get into charge ranges of things. Long range guns oftentimes can't shoot them because you can't shoot them outside 18 inches, but because they have to progress up the table, they actually have to get into range to do stuff. The Nurglings, you have like one unit next to Bellicor strung back, so it's I think if it just bases the Great Unclean One, I don't believe it's possible to engage the Great Unclean One without going into the Nurgling hit penalty aura in melee. I'm just gonna verify that it's a 6-inch aura. It is, yeah. So Nurglings have this little Mischief Maker aura. So 6 inches of the unit, you're -1 to hit in melee. So you can put him base with the back of the Great Unclean One, and I think if you're based with the Great Unclean One, then you're gonna be within 6 of the Nurgling, and so the Nurgling will give you -1 to hit the Great Unclean One into a T12 4+ Feel No Pain unit. So just never get rid of that guy. And Nurglings as well are just super useful. They're super cheap. They're battle lines. So we actually took 4 units of them. I said 3, but it's actually 4. And they can just deep strike. They can deep strike 3 inches away from things. They can break cult ambush tokens. They can just hang out. It's pretty solid. 1 big unit of Plague Bearers, just to hold down objectives. They have objective secured, I believe. So you can use them to lock in your Shadow of Chaos without they do, yeah, without having to stand on the objective. So if your opponent doesn't have redeploys, you can actually just sort of like lock in objectives to Shadow and then keep moving, which is good. 3 units of Flamers, 1 big unit of 5, or of 6, excuse me, and then a unit of Fleshhounds. Yeah, so it's basically. And I think a lot of the demon lists I've been seeing more and more are slowly moving this direction. They're forcing Feel No Pains as much as possible, right? So we have Shalaxi Hellbane, who has a 5+ built in, plus the Great Unclean One has a 4+ built in. Shalaxi probably teleports off Bellicor, but she's also fast, so she could just charge. And then you just create this sort of like this real dumb brick that can't be shifted in the middle of the table, and then you have tons of little demons to run around the sides and do your secondary actions. So, yeah, so far so good. Seems pretty solid. I like it a lot. Very disgusted how they treated melee. The less lethal came from pooping on melee. Yeah, I think also, like, melee, I don't know, it's changed a lot in its use case. Like, armies aren't killing other armies in melee, but what they are doing is disrupting their secondaries. They're scoring their own secondaries. Like, it's oftentimes difficult to score, like, area denial without charging someone. And there are some factions that can still do well in melee. It's just that if your faction isn't predicated on melee attacks, then it's probably not great at it. And melee attacks are mostly for show or to do some utility stuff. But we've seen a lot of melee being used for like these utility options. You know, against Genestealer cults, you're charging constantly because engaging Genestealer cult units in melee is super bad for them. You know, you're constantly trying to like use it to get movement up the table. It's just not like the hammer blow that it used to be in 9th edition, and I mean it is what it is. I have found that the game because of secondary missions, has actually compressed quite a bit. So you end up playing within like the middle 18 inches of the table rather than the longer ranged games that you saw most often. And it might also be the US Open terrain layouts have sort of forced that. But a lot of times you're having to throw units into the center, you're having to throw units into your opponent's deployment zone. And so you actually find yourself in melee threat a lot more often than you did in 9th edition. And that's been a pretty steady trend from 8th, where 8th was you would play an actual mile away from your opponent. And it's slowly compressed inwards, where now you're kind of almost like having this knife fight with your opponent, where things are just getting stuck in all the time. And so melee is like more of a utility than it is a primary damage output. But I think that's, you know, you might not like it, but it's an okay place for things to be, in my opinion. Leader could not pile in because another enemy unit was closer. He could not reach it, so he just stood there. Yeah, that's how pile-ins have always worked. That's not like a new introduction in 10th edition. That's just how pile-ins work. Which is, I don't know, it's weird. I wish that they weren't quite as complicated like that, but they are, so, and that's how they've always been. We have another Chaos Space Marines to talk about here. Oh, there's dark communes coming down, chat. This is already going to be spicy. So we have a Chaos Lord, Cypher, so a little lone operative buddy to sit in the back. A dark commune, 2 dark communes. So these guys are pretty wild. They, let's just grab their datasheet real quick. They are an attachment for cultist units, and they give them an invulnerable save and like they like juice them once per game, where they can get advance and charge, and I think +1 to hit and wound rolls. Let me grab it real quick. There they are. Yeah, so they give a 5+ invulnerable save while they're leading a unit. And then they also grant this once per game, +1 to hit and wound, and advance and charge. So they really juice up, especially accursed cultists, because they already have a pretty solid melee stat line, and they really benefit from an invulnerable save because they don't want to be one shot, because the unit constantly regenerates. So the longer you can make them last, the stronger they are. And it looks like that's what we're playing. Yeah, so we have, looks like 2 units of 16 Accursed Cultists, 10 Mutants, and 6 Torments. And so these guys, every command phase, it's kind of like the Spirit Seer's Wraithguard regeneration. You regenerate either 3 Mutants or 1 Torment back to the unit. So they're regenerating potentially 6 wounds per turn. They have a Feel No Pain built in, I believe, and then they also have that invulnerable save. So That unit is super tough to kill. They are very fast with the advance and charge, and they hit like an absolute truck with that like once per game mini feat. They are expensive is the downside. They're 255, I think, yeah, with the or 245 with the Dark Commune. But they're such a good solid push that it's so difficult to deal with them. 2 units of Chosen, 10 Chosen in each of these, which are, I think, just 3 wound Chaos Space Marines these days. I actually don't know what Chosen have in addition to their increased stats. These guys are spicy, actually. So they're able to take a wider variety of weapons, plus they have advanced fallback, shoot, and charge. That's disgusting. What a good unit! Holy crap! So they're relatively fast. They're Chaos Undivided, so we can get them full rerolls. They have a mix of combi weapons, bolt guns, paired accursed weapons, and plasma pistols. So pretty, not good shooting, but not bad shooting. And the fact that they are 3 wounds each actually makes them kind of resistant to failed battle shock from the Dark Pact mortal wounds. So it's unlikely they lose a model to the mortal wounds for the Dark Pact. We have a Chaos Undivided Obliterator squad to once per game shoot people indirectly and kill them with full rerolls, and then a bunch of Noise Marines as backline with Blastmasters. This list is cool as hell, chat. 3 Chaos Rhinos, which I imagine 2 are for the Chosen and 1 is for the Noise Marine squads. So we're basically just running a bunch of super tough Chaos Space Marines behind these 2 Dark Commune infused accursed cultist mobs. Solid. It's basically we're playing World Eaters right now. It's just with extra steps, essentially. Chad, this is Discount Games Incorporated is the website. I tripped over my words right there really badly. Discount Games Incorporated. Incorporated. Exclamation point lists. I post all the list websites that I use. Yeah, I do think, like I said, I think that, it's going back to the melee comment, because people are still talking about it. I think that you probably have to recontextualize how you consider melee, because there's a lot of people who are like, I'm going to play a melee army, and their army is literally nothing but people with melee attacks, and I think those armies are kind of dead. Every army is combined arms now. If you're good at fighting, you can focus on melee attacks, but you can't exclusively take melee attacks, which is largely, I think, why basically every Space Marine chapter is transitioning into Gladius Task Force, because it makes your melee good, right? You can get +1 to wound, +1 AP, advance and charge. It also buffs all your shooting, so you have 1 or 2 real strong melee threats, and then the rest of your army backs that up with ranged attacks. But I think that a lot of armies, especially Space Marines, that don't have that kind of forward push can actually get pushed out of central objectives really quickly. Space Marines are not super survivable, so if they're only relying on shooting you from their board edge, they're actually just going to die on secondaries really easily, or on primary really easily, because they don't have anything to push up and actually take those objectives. It's just that I don't think that many factions do melee as their number one thing now. The era of White Scars, 30 Vanguard veterans, 10 Blade Guard veterans, being an archetype, I think that's dead. But you can certainly take 6 aggressors or a bunch of Sword Brethren or whatever in a list that's backing up Desolation Marines and Lancers or something, that then they interact in a synergistic way. All right. Let's move on. So we've talked about all the lists on here. Everything else is Eldari. I know that some people were requesting some peeks into specific factions, so I think we'll dive into some of that next. And let me pull up my window in which I was doing that. Here we go. Oh, nope, I lost it. There we go. So, I know some people wanted to see Chaos Knights. I think I spied with my little eye some X1 Chaos Knights at Lone Star Open. So let's take a quick look at that. Here we are. So going down the line, got some Imperial Knights, Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Knights, Kevin McCormick with Chaos Knights holding the Chaos Knight flag high. What has he got going on?
I have extremely funny list for you to review, Smile.
All right, Mr. Commander Cha-Cha. All right, before we dive into this, we'll take a look at this one. That is extremely funny. Thank you. So, Imperial Knights on a noble lance, Canis Rex, Cerastus Knight Lancer, 1 errant, 1 gallant, not a single armiger. Who needs them? Bondsman abilities? Get them out of here. You don't even need those. I think this would be better. Let's lean into the meme. Commander Cha-Cha. We'll just cut the Acalitus Assassin and an Exaction Squad, take 1 Armiger, and just sit him in the back behind all of the Knights, and whichever Bondsman ability you want to be active on the Knight, you just target him with that one. You're like, I need advance in charge of my Lancer this turn, and he's just like, you go get him, boss. Just model him with pom-poms. He's like, go! Advance in charge! Woo! Yeah, bit of a meme for sure. But, I mean, somebody's gonna go, I guess, like, it doesn't even turn 1 charge, right? Because the Cerastus Lancer can't advance in charge without a Bondsman. So, you don't get the opportunity to be like, I went first, and it just, like, dumpstered you with a Lancer, with a Shock Lance. Like, here's a free tank shock, here's a big stab. You do get like 3 tank shocks in a row though, which is kind of fun, right? Because you can do it with the Lancer, you can do it with Canis, or you can pay for it with 1 charge, do it with the Lancer for free, and then do it with Canis Rex for free. I think you could do that, right? Good meme. Lack of a Porphyrion is troubling, yeah. The only meme Imperial Knights list I want to see is... I guess you're not even allowed to take 2 Porphyrions, right? Oh, no, you can. You have to take, like, an Inquisitor, though, to be your Warlord. Or you can fit a 3rd Knight in with 2 Porphyrions, right? How much is a Porphyrion? They're not quite 800, right? They're like 750. Why does my militarum field manual not have... Oh, I opened the old version. I'm sorry. Oh, they're 740. So it's 1480. So you can get 1 more Knight in alongside them. Is that right? Or is it the Chaos Knights one? 745. All right. You pay a 5-point premium for Feel No Pain on the Porphyrion, I guess. So 1490. Yeah. So you could take any of the big Knights. Can you take Canis Rex with them? Yeah. Hell yeah. Perfect. Bombs would be melee weapons. They're better with just guns. You're like, no, don't put those on. They'd make you better in melee, and that's not what we want to encourage. Amazing. Oh, okay, we've updated it. Oh, this is what I'm talking about, chat. Crusader double Porphyrion. Let's go. This is too many models. I don't know. Is this at 2,000? Ugh. Is there a single model, like single entity character out of Imperial agents we can take instead of these 5 exaction squad guys? That's too many exaction squad guys. Just cut him and turn this into Canis Rex, and then we're good. He's basically 2 models because he's got Sir Hector inside, so it's like you've added 25% to your actual unit count. All right, chat. Good stuff. Oops, sorry, I have a question. I'm going to take care of real quick. Oops. All right, chat. Let's talk about some frickin' Chaos Knights. So this one's running a Knight Desecrator with Panoply of the Cursed Knights. We also have a War Dog Stalker, so the character War Dog, with Lord of Dread, which is the, I think, leadership penalty. Which for some reason I can't access right now. It's Aura of Dread is the locking objectives, right? Lord of Dread, I'm 100% sure about. Oh, it just forces battle shock checks in the fight phase. Oh, that's weird. Aura of Terror is the locking objectives. It's kind of a whatever upgrade, I guess. It can potentially stop people from like using combat bonuses and stuff, and gives you, and maybe gives them -1 to hit. But I guess it's probably a points filler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 War Dog Brigands, 2 Executioners, 2 Carnivores. Pretty straightforward. So forcing some additional battle shock check technology from the Stalker, not going all in like with the Abominant builds, but I think I'll come out and say I think the Abominant's probably not that great. I think that's mostly a meme, but definitely the War Dog focus lists are the way to go, and this one's running them pretty well. So it has a big laser, super hard to kill laser threat in the back, and then a ton of War Dogs in addition. So seems solid. Knights need new models that are taller than 10 inches. Yeah, everybody like rebuilds their terrain to try to stop knights from shooting you, and they suddenly get scenic bases. Make them even bigger. So nice to see Chaos Knights and the X and 1. Are there any other factions that we want to take a stab at here? So many Chaos Space Marines in Lone Star Open here. A little bit of Thousand Suns action. I think a lot of people reports of Thousand Suns like brokenness were wildly exaggerated, which I appreciate. There were people saying that like Thousand Suns couldn't be beaten when the faction originally got released, and now Now where are they? We have 1 X and 1 out of 200 players here. Running Ahriman on a disc. I actually think the disc characters... That was another thing that people kind of said about the Thousand Suns list, is that the disc characters would make you susceptible to anti-fly mechanics, and that means they were bad. Except anti-fly doesn't do anything on a T4 model because you already win them on 2s. So there's very few situations. Occasionally you have devastating wounds, but it doesn't really matter. So we have a disc sorcerer with Unperfect Crystal, which is interesting. Magnus the Red, and then 2 foot sorcerers and a Thousand Sun sorcerer and Terminator armor with Arcane Vortex, make his psychic weapons better. So he goes to a 3 damage anti-vehicle 4 psychic attack, I think. And then he usually also gets into melee because Scarab called Terminators just sort of jam up into your opponent's face. So we have a big unit of Rubric Marines with Warp Flamers. Everyone's got Warp Flamers. We're not even taking bolt guns today. Just literally every Rubric squad has all Warp Flamers. Okay, fair enough. A Mutalith Vortex Beast and 10 Scarabacol Terminators. Pretty straightforward, but those little Rubric squads are pretty good. I do like the tech of like getting this little Exalted Sorcerer in there. He's got a pretty good Flamer himself too. So being able to teleport a unit either with him and Warp Flamers or Ahriman, getting with the big Warp Flamer unit and then having a little unit that can teleport around is pretty solid. Yeah, I think especially at the beginning of the edition chat, a lot of people didn't know what they were talking about for sure, myself included. I'm not gonna pretend that my hot takes at the beginning of the edition were particularly correct. Definitely made some incorrect assumptions there. Drukhari, Tau. Yeah, we talked about the Tau list, chat. We'll have a video about that Tau list for sure. Did I just close my Best Guess Bearings page? I think I did. What a silly goose. We'll take a look at some Drukhari. Let's actually do a list search for Drukhari. Although this has been buggy before, so I don't know how well we're gonna get results with it. Yeah, that's no good. All right, let's look at specific events. Oops. We'll just pop through big events and take a look at any Drukhari finishers. So at 3-3, 300s. Okay. That's impressive. This is at Lone Star. Anybody at PSO? 301 or 302 winning record. See what we got going on. So Real Space Raider Detachment. We have an Archon with the Art of Pain. That's the additional. I have the Drukhari thing right here. Hold up, Chad. Sorry, I'm trying to find my Drukhari index and it's disappeared. I have it. I swear, it's gone. What the fuck? All right. Well, whatever. We gotta go find one. I used it in my video today. What happened? What happened between now and then? Weird. Index time. So this is the additional command pain token in the command phase. Pretty easy include for that one on the Archon. We're not taking. Oh, we're taking Lilith. So we get 2 pain tokens at the start of the edition, thanks to the Real Space Raid. The start of the game, start of the edition. Also start of the edition, I guess. 2 units of Cabalite Warriors, 1 unit of Witches for Lilith to hang around with. 4 Venoms, hell yeah, and a Raider. 2 Chronos, 2 Mandrakes, 3 Ravagers, double Scourges, double Death Jesters. The 2 Death Jesters is interesting because only one of them could use their weapon enhancement. So they can choose, I think it's like Sustain, or Sustain, Precision, or Devastating, if I remember correctly, on their weapon, but only one of them gets it every shooting phase, which is super bizarre. But it does make that means that multiple gestures are a little bit funky. That said, I mean, one of them might die. I don't know. You can kind of throw one away and then the other one's still full power. Yeah, I think this is largely what you're going to see. 2 Scourges instead of 3 might just be a model consideration. The Beastmaster is really interesting. Just a ton of wounds for 120 points on this guy. It's pretty interesting. You get 3 Razorwind clocks, 2 Chimera, 1 Clod Fiend. So these are 4 wounds, I think. And then 2 and I think 3. So that's like 19. I think he's 3 wounds. So it's like 22 wounds for 120 points, which is pretty wild. And then a bunch of Cabalite Warriors and Witches. Yeah, so we can split one of the Cabalite Warrior squads and the Witch squad, or split both Cabalite Warrior squads into the Venoms. So you can have 2 Venoms with heavy weapons in them, and then 2 without that you can just use to throw your guys away onto objectives with. And then the Witches can go into the Raider to act as more of a hammer unit alongside Lilith, because she can she buffs their melee attacks. And then she herself is just an absolute like monster when it comes to clearing out infantry. Because she gets a billion attacks with anti-infantry. The Mandrakes are basically an auto-include in Drukhari because they're extremely mobile. They're forward deploy infiltrators, and then they can re-deep strike themselves as well. The Chronos can regenerate your pain tokens. 3 Ravagers are incredibly efficient Darklance shooting. I talked about them in my video earlier today. And then the Scourges are just incredible. 4 Darklances apiece. You slap a pain token on them, so they reroll all their hit rolls. They're only ballistic skill 4, but with full rerolls, it's not the end of the world. And then they fire and fade after they shoot. So they can deep strike down, like blow up a tank, jump back behind a wall. So if you don't have good indirect fire, they're like super tough to interact with too. They're just amazing. And then 2 Death Jesters to just be lone operatives. There you go. There you go, chat. Pretty solid. I actually think Drukhari is really cool. We were talking a little bit of technology in the Discord yesterday about Drukhari. You can do some funky stuff, splitting your Cabalite Warriors into multiple. I think the spiciest take I heard was you take a Tantalus and you can fill it with 3 5-man units of 5-man combat squads of Cabalite Warriors with heavy weapons, and then put a pain token on the Tantalus and reroll all of the shots from the Tantalus itself, and then also all of the Dark Lance and Blaster shots that come out of the guys inside. Might be a meme, but pretty funny. I also think that like Incubi might be a little bit underrated because they actually hit super hard with Drazar in the unit. So it's a little bit of play there. Definitely not a terrible faction, but they are overshadowed quite a bit by Eldari. I think if Eldari got like the kibosh tomorrow, then we would see a lot more people playing into Drukhari. Or if specific Eldar profiles get nerfed, we might see people play Ynnari and be taking a lot of Drukhari in Eldar lists. I think both of those are pretty viable. Pleasantly surprised they seem to intend to leave Necrons alone. Yeah, I'm a little interested in Necrons' results so far, because they haven't been doing super well. But they are... they're still incredibly strong, but they're probably not... They're so inconsistently strong because some armies just like can deal with their units and some armies can't, that they don't have the same level, like the level of redundancy, I think, that Games Workshop really wants to tone down in the game. Dan Bleach, I'm having a great stream. Thanks for coming and popping by. They're going to nerf the Catan enhancement in the next patch? Are they? Maybe. I actually think the Catan will still be probably viable without it, though. If they make the Transcendent Catan unable to be enhanced, I would hope that they give it reanimation protocols back, though. But I don't know if the intention was that the Catan shards have reanimation protocols to begin with. I have no idea. Yeah, none of the the Archon stuff turns off when they're when they're in a raider, which is a little bit funky for them, definitely. But their abilities are just like rote so good that you just take them anyway and you hide them in the corner. And that's honestly like kind of always how Archons have worked. There's always been like that what is it, the writ of the muse or whatever, the dude who gives a bunch of rerolls to everybody, and he always just sort of hangs in the back of the table and hopes nobody looks at him. He can give his unit wound rerolls as well. So if he jumps into a... You can sort of give him a Death Star, because you can give him a Court of the Archon, right, for 4 additional models, plus a Cabalite Warrior Squad. So you can put him into a unit of 15 models and then give them all full wound rerolls by empowering them. So the reroll hits and wounds, which is good, but on the flip side, it's just going to get blown up by anti-tank, so I don't know. So you probably just like stick him in the back corner and he hangs out for a while. I mean, he's got a 2+ invulnerable save, so he's like sort of Phoenix gemmed, where you're like, well, you could shoot him with your Manticore, but it almost certainly won't kill him. And your opponent's like, all right, I won't. Just because of the shadow field. All right. Any other factions we want to take a look at, chat? We are, I think, rounding things out. So we will probably take a look at a couple more lists and then call it a stream. Pretty interested to see all these X and 1 factions right now. It does feel like at the top competitive levels, Warhammer 40k is kind of an exercise in dodging Eldar. And if you can do that, and to a lesser extent, Genestealer cults, and if you can do that, then you are like A-okay. And you're actually like up for a pretty interesting tournament. So I'm really crossing my fingers we see those factions toned down pretty soon. Archons need devastating wounds? Yeah. Maybe. It is weird that their Husk Blade is not the powerhouse it used to be. That old Jin Blade Splintered Mind guy with the double swing was pretty good. Double swing and Eternal Hatred, so he used to full reroll everything. That was pretty solid. You would take like 2 or 3 Archons in a list back in 9th edition. But also the 9th edition, when Drukhari was really good, and the 9th edition Drukhari army was... You could play whatever. It was tough to lose with that one. I don't think the errata is being published today, chat. It's being published this week. They said last Thursday that it was coming this week, but they didn't say when. So we're just waiting. They normally drop on like Thursday or Friday, so we're probably looking at Thursday, but don't quote me. Black Templars? Yeah, we can take a look at Black Templars. I'm gonna keep in Lone Star open because it was the biggest event. Let's see. We got a 3/3. Is the best one. Anything? Oops. Close that window by accident. Anything from Palm Springs? Ooh, 4/2 at Palm Springs, actually. TJ Spaeth with Black Templars. In a Gladius Task Force. No Righteous Crusaders. That's sad. I actually think Righteous Crusaders is one of the few Space Marine detachments that you can justify. It feels like that one and the Deathwatch one. But even then, the Deathwatch one's like kind of okay. It just is really... It leans heavily into taking kill teams, which are kind of the focus of that faction. So we're in like Gladius Task Force, but that does make you faster, which is good. You can advance and charge in Gladius Task Force, so you're much better at getting into melee. You just use lose your Templar vows, which sucks. You can also take Librarians again, which is a little bit weird, but it is what it is. A Bolter Discipline, Primaris Apothecary. Oh, I wonder what that's going to go in, chat. Do we think it could be an Intercessor squad to give them exploding 5s in their bolt rifles? Let's find out. A Primaris Captain with the power weapon and shield, so the Indomitus Captain. A unit of... it's just 5 regular Crusaders with a Grav Gun and a Multi-Melta. 5 regular Crusaders with a Grav Gun and a Multi-Melta. Oh, that's interesting. This is 5, right? It's 4. These are so hard to read. Yeah, it's 1 sword. So I guess it's 6, right? It's 1 sword. No, it's 5. 1 sword brethren with a Power Fist and Thunderhammer. That can't be right. Let me look at this profile. This is hard to parse through. The 40k app, I'll give them credit. The 40k app's pretty good. The readout, not as great. So the standard Crusader squad, I didn't realize that the standard Crusader squad is just a better tactical squad. Is that the case? That's always how they've been, though. These things have just been superior tactical squads since time immemorial. Where's the Crusader squad? Oh, there they are. Ah! Lost my place. All right. So you have a sword brother, and you have 4 other dudes, and you can take in neophytes if you want. The sword brother can take a Thunderhammer. And then 1 other dude can take... So did we just equip him with a Power Fist and a Thunderhammer? 2 different items. Yeah, I think we just replaced his... I think we just replaced his bolt gun with two melee weapons. He's like, let's go. So, I mean, I guess if you don't want the -1 to hit, you just swing with the Power Fist. And then if you want the devastating wounds, you just swing with the Thunderhammer. If you're like, I'm going to swing it at night, I might as well roll for devastating. I'll make the Thunderhammer attacks. That's, that's kind of hilarious, I guess. Well, TIL. You could just take 2 melee weapons on that guy. Unnecessary. It's not very good, but... Sure. And then you get... Yeah, you get 1 heavy weapon and 1 special weapon. So they're just a combat squad with a heavy weapon in them. That's for 75 points. That's solid. And they get reroll advanced charge rolls. So they lose objective secured, I think, which is what the tactical squads have, but you don't have to take the 5 extra idiot dudes that you have to with the tactical squad. That's pretty sweet. Primaris Crusader squad, another Primaris Crusader squad. Those are 10-mans. The Big Desolation squad, what? That's where the Primaris Apothecary is going. That's crazy. 1 Inceptor squad, 1 Infiltrator squad, 1 Scout Sniper squad, another Scout, a Run Regular Scout squad, interesting. A Calidus Assassin, and a Knight Castellan. All right, well... Do you think we took the Knight Castellan because it's called a Castellan, and that's also a Black Templars unit? Maybe he was making the list, and he was like, oh, I'll add a Castellan to this. Clicked on the wrong one. He's like, that's weird. Why is my character 565 points? No, that adds a lot of backline shooting that, unironically, I think Space Marines kind of lack. They have, like, they can take Lancers. You could take, like, 3 Lancers in the spot for that, but Lancers they, like, die kind of easy, whereas the Castellan adds this really resilient bulwark that Space Marines actually don't really get otherwise. So it pulls a lot of focus from all these Primaris Crusaders running at your opponent. Seems pretty interesting. Plus, it has a bunch of, like, random little Crusader squads and multi-meltas in them, which seems good. I like that. So this is largely a standard Gladius task force, but it's kind of just subbed in for Black Templar stuff. Look at these scores, though, chat. Oh my god. His losing scores were 74 and 75. Let me tell you, if I could only score a minimum of 74 points in my games of Warhammer 40,000, I would be so happy. He scored 200s, an 89, and a 98. That is some hella high scoring right there. Let's go, Black Templars. Good stuff. All right, chat. Any final requests? And then I think I'm going to call it a day. I will be live over on Twitch in about an hour and a half from now. We just looked at the list, chat. Like, literally, that was the one we were just looking at with the Night Castellan in it. Yeah, that is a pretty sweet list for sure. If Death Watch gets Black Spear Task Force, will they get a Black Shield Task Force? Ooh, that would be cool. Like, real melee focused? I like that. Grey Knights? We can take a look at Grey Knights. Only 3-0 at frontline. Ew. Oh no, Grey Knights. So I guess we can take. We'll roll the dice on a list search here too, just to see if we can find any undefeated ones. List search. Why are you so broken? All right, let's look at this 1-1. Alexander Stengel. A little different than normal. So normally what we'll see is Drago Voldus Triple Brotherhood Librarian when we're just basically forcing mortal wounds. We're taking a Brotherhood champion this time around. With Inescapable Wrath. So I have my index ready to go here. I have to learn the names of all these enhancements. That's really my next. I should make flashcards for all the enhancements in the game. So Inescapable Wrath is +1 to charge rolls, and then the Librarian with First to the Fray can deep strike on the first turn, even if otherwise disallowed. And then the Sigil of Exigence on the Librarian, which is just like the old one where if he gets shot, he can jump away. And then, so you have that combined with Mists of Deimos, so you have 2 potentially reactive deep strikes into your opponent's turn, so you can really muck with their ability to deal damage to you. So we have a Brotherhood Terminator squad, 2 Brotherhood Terminator squads, 1 Strike squad, a big, huge Purifier squad. So we're going to add Castellan Crow to that, who I believe increases the number of attacks made with their little baby smite. Yeah, so their Purifying Flame, which is very small, apparently. Their Purifying Flame, which I think for the normal guys shoots 2 times, gets +1 attack. We'll go ahead and grab the Purifier unit here. So their base shoots 1. It's anti-infantry 2 at AP 1, ignore cover. So it wounds infantry on 2s, but he gives them +1. So he himself shoots 4, and the rest of the unit shoots 2. So with a squad of 10 guys, you shoot 24 anti-infantry 2 shots. They don't have devastating wounds. It's important to keep in mind. So they don't automatically convert. But that is a lot of pretty okay shooting into a lot of infantry. So you can use them to kind of harass people. And then he turns damage to 0 once per turn that targets him. That's not really that useful, but it is what it is. I guess he does have a 4+ invuln save, so it's not the easiest thing to kill. And then 3 Armiger Warglaves and 2 Assassins to follow things up. I guess, you know, if you can't do it with Grey Knights, do it with Imperial Agents, I guess. So running Warglaves, not the Helverins, which is interesting. So at least, I think the one thing that the Grey Knights kind of run into is that they're able to jump onto opponents' objectives and sort of harass them really easily, but they don't really hold the midboard very well because they're not very survivable. And what they want to do is prevent you from scoring primary, score their secondaries, jump away in your movement phase. So with Mist of Deimos, so you can't interact with them, but then like they're just moving around and doing their own thing, and then you can hop back again potentially the next turn. But that means that their units who stand out in the open in the middle will just get killed. But these Armiger Warglaves don't really care about being shot so much because their points per wound is pretty efficient. So they'll just sort of chill in the midboard, and then you have a Calidus Assassin to vex people and a Vindicare Assassin to shoot them all game and be lone operatives. So this is a very technical list. This list is actually really cool. I like it. Seems interesting. A little bit low on anti-tank. I think we were hoping that the Armiger Warglaves could help out there. And Armiger Warglaves plus 2 Brotherhood Librarians might be able to do some damage. Because they can pop for a ton of mortal wounds if they get lucky. They could also just kill themselves, but, you know, such is life. Is there an upcoming balance slate? This week. Yep, that's what they said last week, is it's coming this week, but we don't know when yet. The Proteus kill team with 4 Infernus Heavy Bolters, 3 Cyclone, Abyss Launchers, Pergatus Tactics, and Hellfire rounds. Pretty good. A lot of it's like, I don't know how much, I guess like high toughness infantry. You don't necessarily need Hellfire rounds against low toughness stuff if you're, but it doesn't hurt for sure. Cool. Good stuff. Well, chat, I think we'll probably call it there. This has been an interesting stream. I hope that I've sort of demonstrated appropriately that we're getting close with people becoming better at their factions, becoming better at the game, and creating counters to the top factions. We're slowly but surely inching towards a better metagame. We do need a little love tap to Eldar. Boop. And that would be amazing. And if we could get that sooner rather than later, that would be great. But the number at the once like you start diving into the X and 1 bracket, the number of interesting lists that are doing well in tournaments is really cool. And I'm excited for the point that we get to where 10th edition, isn't a balanced nightmare. I do think that, the bottom stuff is definitely, we need some help for sure, but that's hopefully coming in the next update. Yeah, it's theoretically it's supposed to be an errata, more of a balance update. So I think that they're just fixing, like, bug fixing things. So I don't know if anything's getting nerfed actually. Who knows, right? It's we'll find out, I guess. Would rather see the bottom be taken up so a counter to Eldar appears there. You'd have to go a long way. I mean, Eldar's so easy to put into a playable point, though. You just need to remove Phantasm from the game. I think, like, literally, if all they did was just go in and delete Phantasm from the index, I actually think Eldar would be okay. They would still be really good, because their efficiency is really strong, but the Phantasm is just toxic to the way 40k plays. It doesn't mesh with the game at all, which is a little bit ridiculous. So I think, you'd have to so wholesale transform the bottom factions in the game in order to make them compete with Eldar that it would be, I don't know if it's even worth trying. But I definitely think they for sure need a lot of changes, definitely. Balance is supposed to come September, yeah. So 5 to 6 weeks, probably. Yeah, Pigsy, I agree with you, too. I also hope that it's one of those the secret balance passes. Yeah. They're like, guys. We forgot that Rad Bombardment is supposed to do D3 plus 3 mortal wounds all the time.
In a vacuum, Terminator Chaplain to protect versus Mortals 5 Termi holding MIP, or 3x5 Fenrisian Walls?
That's a good question. It depends on what else is in your list. It's tough to say, like, in a vacuum, but generally, I would say the 5 Fenrisian Wolves. If you have a lot of other utility stuff in your army, so if your army's also like got 3 Inceptor units and like a bunch of forward deploy, then you need the Fenrisian Wolves less. But if you don't have any of that stuff, you absolutely need chaff to go do actions and things. So I would say the Wolfie boys. Plus, they're the bestest boys, and you get to give them little pats when they do a good job. They're like, our firefight deployed a teleport Homer, and you're like, I don't even know how you know how to do that, but good job, buddy. And then you give them a little noogle. Let everyone get 250 points of Eldar allies. 250 points of Eldar allies is more anti-tank than most armies can field. It's probably pretty good for them. Anyway, chat, depending on the extent of the change later this week, I may be live then. But until then, obviously, there's going to be a lot of T5S2 streams. The next one scheduled currently is on Wednesday night, so please go check that one out. In addition, there'll be a lot of videos coming out. So tomorrow, Wednesday, I believe it's at 5 or it's at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern, but I'll double check that just in case. And in fact, I think I have it set so that it'll redirect you to the page, so you can put yourself on a little notification. It is, yeah. Oh, it's 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern, sorry. Tomorrow evening. So please come watch that. It's going to be Custodes versus Chaos Knights. Everybody likes Custodes, so that's fun. And should be a good game, I hope. We're going to round out the round of 16 with that game, and then we'll know who's progressing to the round of 8. And we have our first round of 8 game scheduled for Friday right now, and another one on Sunday. So please stay tuned to those. That's been fun so far. Again, if you haven't seen it yet, we do have events being scheduled in the Discord server. 2 of them kicking off on Wednesday. We have a Combat Patrol event and a Grand Tournament event. Both of them, registration closes end of day on Wednesday. Please go register. ! Events in chat. In fact, I'll just do it for you if you haven't seen it. Then we can all play together, and it'll be fun. Our range is supposed to be 40 points for 5. The answer, yes. Yeah. Guys, we accidentally typoed every Adeptus Mechanicus points value. They're all supposed to be 50% less expensive. That's it. That's the FAQ. We'll just do a quick fix on the on the Militarum Field Manual. All right, chat. That's going to be it for me today. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me. And I'll see you later. Please come hang out on Twitch as well, because I'm going to stream there in a bit. So, goodbye, everybody. Cheers.